What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Formula One True North, the Canadian Formula One podcast. My name is Drew, and I'm here with Tomas, and our boy Ed is back in the building. Hell yeah. But our boy Walker is missing in action tonight. But what we're going to do is we are going to go over the 2025 driver lineup, or at least as much as we have figured out right now. And we are going to rate the drivers and let you know a little bit about what our expectations are based on where they are signed and where they will be driving for 2025.
It's lights out and away we go.
So let's get this started. Let's start with Red Bull, because there isn't going to be much change for 2025. We got Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. And I want to hear your thoughts on having those two drivers going into 2025. We haven't heard from Ed in a while. Ed, let's kick it off.
Thank you for the warm welcome back. And I missed everyone, missed our listeners. And just glad to be back. And on that topic, so Red Bull, Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez. I mean, I can't even begin to say about what happened with Daniel Ricciardo, but that's yesterday's news now at this point. But I'm kind of disappointed why Sergio Perez still has a seat. And I don't know what is going to happen moving forward with the way he's just performing. And he's going to be that anchor for Max Verstappen. And on top of that, like the ailing team of Red Bull and not being able to produce a fantastic car for Max to be able to compete, kind of scary. I mean, I'm not going to say that they're not still a competitive team, but the armor has been chinked. The armor has been damaged. It's not looking good for me. Tomas, what do you think?
Yeah, so Red Bull is one of those interesting teams right now. There's so much, as we talked the last couple episodes, there's so much going on there right now with all the internal stuff, external stuff, with the car and performance. It's definitely going to be an interesting next season to watch with them. Their car, since it's not performing so well right now, I don't know how Max is going to continue pulling the whole team, because basically right now that's what he's doing. He's pulling the whole team. So I really don't know where he's going to be next year. Do I think he's going to continue dominating races next year, like first, second or whatnot? Maybe there's going to be a couple. All of them, I just don't see that happening. I think a lot of the teams have caught up to Red Bull or are catching up, and they're actually giving Red Bull, they're fighting Red Bull essentially. In regards to Sergio, I'm with you, Ed. I don't know how he's still part of the team. I'm pretty sure I read today, I think, a comment from Helmut Marko. I think it said that we're committed essentially to Sergio, but we're always looking for someone better. So right now, he's still with Red Bull, but who knows if he's going to be with Red Bull by the end of this season, let alone beginning of next season. That's still kind of in there too. We don't know if there's an exit clause. We don't know if they're going to find someone better. Yeah, he's confirmed right now as far as I know. But again, things change so fast, especially at Red Bull and Visa Cash App. So it's going to be an interesting thing to watch out for. But yeah, I still don't know why Checo's there. How he still has a seat blows my mind, just the way he's performing this year so far.
You know what? I think you brought up a great point, because I agree with both of you guys. Obviously Max Verstappen has been, the best performing driver over the last few years, and that's why he's been winning, and Red Bull has backed him wholeheartedly, and that's a fact. But Checo's been a bit of a wild card and has been for the last few years. I think the last couple of years he's been just good enough to pull off a secondary driver for Max to help them win, but he's no longer there, especially with the pace of that car. Now, with the history that Red Bull has and is currently still proving with how they're getting rid of Danny Rick in the middle of a season and pulling someone in like Liam Lawson, don't want to jump to that too early. We will get to that Lawson seat for 2025, but while we have Red Bull here, I'm not convinced that Checo's going to be there for next year. I've been hearing a lot of stuff about Checo being, announced a retirement at the Mexican Grand Prix or after that, and they're just kind of waiting for that. I don't know whether that's in the rumor mill or whether that's an actuality. But if Checo has 6 races left in the year, and if he doesn't perform in any sort of meaningful way, I can't imagine him sticking around in that seat. That being said, Red Bull historically has used an opportunity like Liam Lawson to get him into the seat 6 races earlier and not let Danny Rick finish the season. Got Liam Lawson in for one of 2 reasons. One, I think there's an opportunity for him to get 6 races in this season. So next season, he doesn't have to learn the car in the first 6 races. He'll be ready to go. Or maybe to see if he has a better shot at that second seat at the parent team at Red Bull and throw him in there over Yuki Tsunoda. Or maybe they find out very quickly that Liam Lawson isn't up to the grade as Yuki Tsunoda, and that is an opportunity for Yuki to take that second seat at Red Bull. I'm not turning off any of those possibilities because I think those are all a very real possibility, because Red Bull's got themselves in a dilly of a pickle here, as far as I'm concerned. So that's Red Bull. I think that's a good start. Obviously, that team has done very well over the last few years. You know, in recent races, let's call it the last 5-6 races, they've been not showing as much pace, but still a very competitive car. And with Max Verstappen behind the wheel, I think they're able to will that car into higher places than it deserves. But that's why they have Max. I want to move it down the grid a little bit. We are going to go to the current 3rd place team, which is Ferrari. And their 2025 driver lineup looks very different for next year. I'm actually super pumped about it. So you have their main driver, their number 1 driver as of right now, Charles Leclerc. But now you have a 7 or 8, depending on what you want to call him, world champion in Lewis Hamilton. So with those 2 drivers, I think that's going to be a very interesting dynamic, not only as a driver pairing, but also as a driver pairing for a very historically legendary team like Ferrari. So, guys, what are your thoughts on the 2025 drivers lineup for Ferrari?
Yeah, so it's definitely what you said, Drew. It's definitely an interesting pairing. Charles Leclerc, I think he's going to continue performing the way he's performing. I think there's going to be an uptick in his performance with Ferrari. I think he's going to continue killing it. You know, hopefully he's going to have less bad races and more good races. You know, hopefully we see more Charles Leclerc in his top performance for the Grand Prix. So I'm very excited for that. As for Lewis Hamilton, that is going to be so cool to see at Ferrari together with Charles Leclerc. You know, as we all heard from what he said on Drive to Survive, you know, I'm not leaving Mercedes. I want to win another championship. And then after the episode came out, lo and behold, he's signing with Ferrari. So no one saw that coming. That is going to be amazing. I don't know. I really hope that when he joins Ferrari and when he starts racing for them, I hope there's going to be way more, you know, podiums with Ferrari, with him especially, and not with Mercedes, because again, this year, the last couple of years, Mercedes just wasn't really up to par. Yeah, they had a couple good races, but maybe, you know, Ferrari's where Lewis wants to be, wants to, you know. Again, as we talked, everyone wants to be in that red uniform. Everyone wants to feel the Ferrari pride, and that's where he is. And I think he wants to go out on top with Ferrari, and he's going to give it all he got. And, you know, with his performance, he's going to, I hope he's going to elevate this team to a championship team, world team. So I'm very, very excited and looking forward to what's going to happen next year with those two. It's going to be a blast to watch. Ed, what do you got?
I'm excited too. Like, don't get me wrong. The red Ferrari, look at that. For anyone who's not watching us on YouTube but on Spotify and listening to us, our boy Jude decided to wear his Ferrari cap. Yeah, I mean, super excited for Lewis. Super excited for the Ferrari team. However, I think that the team would be a little bit interesting in a sense that now they're going to try to find out who the ace driver will be. I mean, I see that Charles Leclerc, as you said, is ace driver number 1 right now. But yeah, I mean, if it only takes a while for Lewis to probably get used to the car, if any, and then we'll know by 2026 who would be that lead driver, who would have most of the you know, the attention of all of the mechanics, all of the engineers, and you know, would have the attention of the entire team. So feel bad for Charles, because if Lewis does outperform him and if that happens, he lost his number 1 seat. Like, at that point, he's just gonna be second string. So it would be a very interesting 2025, moving into 2026, and that's what I'm really looking at. Like with the new regulations and whatnot, we'll see what happens. But yeah, super exciting.
So, it becomes one of those things where Charles Leclerc is the future of Ferrari. And if I were to be Ferrari upper management, I would be putting all my eggs in Charles' basket. I think everyone knows that I'm a Lewis fanboy. Love the guy, great driver. He was the guy running the show when I first started watching Formula One. And he was the pinnacle of motorsport as far as I was concerned. And now that he's going to a team like Ferrari, obviously I'm going to support it. That's awesome. I think it's a really cool thing. But I think for the longevity of Ferrari, putting their eggs behind Lewis Hamilton is not going to be the play. Unless they have a championship winning car next year and Lewis is already adapted to that car, Charles is the future of Ferrari. And they've already invested so much time, money, effort, and progress into him that it would be silly for them to divert it. So the way I kind of see it is that like Lewis is joining Ferrari. He has a great track record. He has attention in a big, big way. So Ferrari's going to get some much needed attention and diversity. I think they are going to use him as a big marketing play to get some new eyeballs onto Ferrari as a Formula One team. And I think that he's going to give Ferrari a sense of edification. Like they're saying like this is a championship driver and he wanted to retire at Ferrari. Because I ultimately think that that's the case. Like I can't imagine Lewis bouncing around from team to team, at the back marker teams, something like, unfortunately, like a Bottas is doing. You know what I mean? Like a Carlos Sainz is doing. That like they were at a top team, was a number one driver, and then all of a sudden they're like going down and down and down the grid and just bouncing around looking lost. Again, much like our Danny Ricciardo was doing. And I can't imagine Lewis is going to do that. I think he's just going to retire on top. And so ultimately, like, what's Lewis doing? He's going to come here with a couple years, give it his best shot, and then bounce. But if Ferrari puts all their eggs behind Lewis, that's not it. That's not a long-term play because he's only here for a blip in the length of Ferrari as a whole. This is just a minute couple seasons that he's going to be there. So that all being said, I do think Ferrari has a super strong team for next year. I'm rating them very highly as long as their engineers keep them out of the shitter in terms of delivering a decent car for those guys. I think that Ferrari has an absolutely menacing chance at being top 1 or 2 next year. So that being said, we're going to keep going down the grid here. Let's talk about Mercedes. So the Mercedes 2025 F1 drivers lineup looks like this. We got big guy George Russell, and we have the new young gun, Mr. Put It In My Wall on the second lap, Andrea Kimi Antonelli. So we have a new rookie driver jumping into arguably the top 3 team on the grid right now, looking absolutely messy in his first race in Formula One. Let's talk about Mercedes. What are you guys thinking about their 2025 driver lineup? Lewis Hamilton's leaving. That's obviously a big kick in the gut. They had a lot invested in him, a lot of time. There was a lot of history there. They got a couple of young guys. Obviously, there's a little bit of history there with George, but Kimi's brand new, and they got a lot of faith in what he's going to bring to it. And if you look across to Formula 2, Kimi's not doing so great. And I know that those skill sets don't always transfer, but do you think it's a long shot? Guys, do you think it's a long shot? Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, so in regards to Mercedes, I think it's what I just said, that Mercedes did not see Lewis leaving. I think the pressure is going to be on him. He'll have to perform. I mean, he's kind of already in most races outperforming him, but I think even the pressure is going to add up there. So he's going to feel the pressure. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do. In regards to Andreas Antonelli, I don't know. Basically, from what we've seen the first race, Drew, as you said, messy start. You know, I don't watch Formula 3 or Formula 2, so I don't know how he's performing. I'm gonna, take your word on it that he's not doing so well. And like you said, the skills don't always transfer from F2 to F1, whether that's for better or for worse. But that's gonna be a lot of pressure on the kid as well. So it's really hard to say from just the one race, judging by the one race he did. I don't see super hot things coming from Kimi right now. Whether that's inexperience or he needs more time with the car or just more practice. It's going to be a challenging, maybe not challenging, but it's going to be a tough 2025 for Mercedes the way I'm seeing. If they're going to score points, I think George is going to be the majority of it. I think that it's going to kind of be like Red Bull, I think, where Max is, scoring most of the points. I think that's going to be George scoring most of the points, and Kimi Antonelli kind of, picking up the last couple places that he can, last couple points. That's what I'm seeing. Ed?
Well, you know what? I actually think on the other side of that coin, with the showing of Kimi Antonelli, like bringing a lot of pace. I mean, yes, he really bent it in Parabolica, on the penultimate corner in Monza. So it's just it's nerves. It's a showing, as I said in a previous podcast, that it's his hometown. Super excited. Make a mistake. I mean, everyone makes a mistake, specifically that corner, because it's a very tough corner to handle if there's so many factors that could be distracting you. But in its entirety, for the team, for Mercedes, really good planning in terms of how to move forward in their driver lineup. We have George that's now like really coming into his own. Had a lot of strong outings this season. Needs a little bit more polishing, but I think that's going to happen in the next 6 races, and then into testing into next season. And he'll really now come into his own, that being the ace driver of the team. And then you have Kimi Antonelli that has the pace, has the speed. He has the understanding of how to, bring out speed out of a car, and possibly even learn from George as well, being a teammate. So it'll be a good, interesting season. I'm looking forward to Mercedes bouncing back, and looking forward to the next season.
Quick question before we move on from Mercedes. Do you think George has enough skill set in his repertoire to teach? Do you think he's there yet?
No, I think, George is a decent driver and everything, but I don't think he has enough skill set to actually teach Kimi Antonelli. He might be able to better maybe advise him, but to actually teach, I don't see that happening as of right now.
I mean, I would say based on experience of what he experienced, and not necessarily be a mentor or a teacher, but just like sharing with Kimi, like, this is what's happening in terms of like the setup of a car, and that's pretty much it. But like, that's why they're a very young team. George only has a few years under his belt, a few competitive years. I mean, I'm not gonna single out his stint in Williams, but he wasn't really that competitive and driving for a competitive car. But now that he's really starting to come into his own. You might give a little bit of a tidbit here and there, but not to the extent of the experience coming from Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, I agree. Like, somebody like Fernando Alonso going over to Aston Martin and being able to kind of pass down that knowledge, like that's kind of how I saw it. And then you got your Sebastian Vettels doing it, and then you have your Lewis Hamiltons doing it. And I just think that there's an age and knowledge base that you get just over being in Formula One for a time that is a teachable skill. And I'm not sure that George is there yet. And Toto's a smart enough guy that I think that he knows exactly what he's getting into having Kimi. And like you said, Ed, it's a really young team, and that's the way it's going to be. But I think 2025 is going to be a stepping stone year for all the cars, right? Like, everyone's not worried about 2025 because 2026 is going to change the game immensely. And so I think it's going to be a lot of learning involved, and there's going to be a lot of teams that are willing to take a whatever year in order to have everything prepped for the new reg changes in 2025. So I'm actually pumped about the Mercedes lineup. I always like when a young gun comes on the scene, because then Kimi's going to come in and he's going to do one of two things. He's either going to be absolutely awesome and shut everybody up, or he's going to shit the bed. And, that's kind of where it's going to land, right? But, okay, we're going to move on to the current Formula One constructors champions in 2024 as of right now. We got McLaren. And their 2025 Formula One driver lineup remains unchanged. So we got Lando Norris and we got Oscar Piastri. I like these guys. And I like everything about them. Not only the fact that these guys are both great drivers, but the fact that they're competitive and they're both gunning for that number one, quote unquote, A team, A seat. And I think that, out of just sheer time, and I guess he's just been in a place where he needs a little bit of grace from the team because he was at McLaren when McLaren wasn't good. He has some respect that's earned to him. And I think that Oscar came in at the exact moment that McLaren started becoming competitive. And ultimately, there's just some time that those things happen, right? It's not the first time and it's not going to be the last time. Look at Lewis Hamilton when he jumped over to Mercedes. All of a sudden, McLaren shit the bed and Mercedes skyrocketed. There is a lot of timing involved. And Oscar just happened to come over to McLaren in a really good time in their Formula One career, right? In their history. But I think that Lando needs to be given a little bit of respect in terms of them giving him the shot, the opportunity to win the Drivers' Championship. And I think that they're squandering that away. But I want to hear what you guys think about what's going to happen with the McLaren pair going into 2025.
So I'm with you, Drew. I think both of them are great drivers. Interesting point you brought up in regards to Lando Norris that I didn't really think about it before. Yeah, I agree. I think McLaren should give him a chance. I mean, I see them being the dominant force of 2025 as well. Just the way they're recently performing the last couple of races, especially. I don't think they're gonna back down or get worse per se. I think they're gonna continue performing at their highest top level and they're gonna continue dominating. I think they have pretty good chemistry between the drivers. The team, for the most part, I think is doing the right things. And I think it's a dream team, and I expect good things from them. That's all said, but kind of bringing in Ferrari a little bit to this, I think Ferrari is going to be their number one contender next year, just because with Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, and the way McLaren has both of these guys, I think that's where the fighting is going to happen. I don't see Red Bull in the mix with these two. Red Bull might be in the third place, but from what I see, again, McLaren and Ferrari are going to be the top dogs fighting it out. So yeah, that's my take.
You know what? For me, it's starting to look like Vettel, Weber, Hamilton, Rosberg. What else? No, not Schumacher. Raikkonen and what's the other guy? Anyway, I forgot it. What the point I'm trying to make is that it's two strong drivers, fantastic team, fantastic car, and now they're gonna start to fight. Now they're gonna start to compete. So for me, that is the epitome when it comes to Formula One. You have not just competing with the rest of the field. Now your car is so good, your drivers are so good, now they're going to compete against each other. So looking at 2025, man, I already know that McLaren is just, they're going to take it to the field, because now that they're really showing, okay, we can do this. We have a competitive car. We have two fantastic drivers. Lando Norris needs to step up, needs to really own the show and be the ace driver, and not let Oscar Piastri take him over. However, if Lando doesn't do that, then we have the strong Oscar Piastri to come over and just take it all. So it all boils down really at this point, and the pressure is on Lando Norris. I agree with you on that one, Drew. He does deserve the respect, because he was there from when it was really shitty. It was a shitty car. And then now it's just it's a very, very competitive car. It's the fastest on the grid at this point. But then again, you can only do so much with a fast car if you don't have the drive, if you don't want to take the wins. So the team can only do so much, but if you don't want to take it, it's open for everyone else. So yeah, 2025 is going to be a strong outing for McLaren, even for the rest of this season too. So it's going to be interesting racing for the last 6 races of the season.
Totally. I think McLaren is going to be a very exciting team to watch next year. I think they are going to finish this year off strong, and I think they're going to come out next year swinging. They have the confidence for the very first time in a very long time that they are the fastest team on the grid. And I think they have arguably one of the best driver pairings on the grid, both short term and long term. I think they're both quick now, and I think they're going to become both better drivers in the coming seasons. So let's move our way down the team lineup. Let's go to Aston Martin 2025 Formula One driver lineup. We have Mr. Fernando Alonso and Lance Strolovich. What are your thoughts on this team, guys? Obviously, Lance Stroll is not going anywhere until he finds anything better to do with his time for Daddy's team. And you have somebody like Fernando Alonso, who is a world drivers champion multiple times over and an absolutely legendary driver in every sense of the word. He's aging, and he is still as competitive as he ever could be. Unfortunately, Aston Martin has not built him a car this year, but they are doing everything in their power to get him a competitive car next year and going forward with Mr. Adrian Newey. So, keeping Mr. Adrian Newey in mind as their recent signing at Aston Martin, where do you guys see these two next year?
So I'm gonna quote Ed a little bit and basically start off is Lance, get out of Formula One. You don't belong there. No, but in all seriousness, he's not going anywhere. Daddy's money, he's there for however long he's there, right? Which is kind of shame. I like Fernando Alonso. I like Aston Martin as a car company, as a team. Unfortunately, one driver is kind of dragging the team down as well. Having said that, Aston Martin had strong moments in the past, last year, this year, but overall, they're middle, probably a little bit more below middle. And what you said, Drew, the Aston Martin has not given its drivers a good enough car. With Fernando Alonso, he's a strong driver. He's definitely a veteran, and if I'm pretty sure, given his experience, he's pushing that car to the limit. And if he can't get on the podium, then you can only blame the driver so many times. Sometimes the car just doesn't perform, and I think we all agree that's where Aston Martin is right now. Having signed Adrian Newey, I think we will see an improvement in Aston Martin in 2025. As we discussed, they're not going to do much updates, but the updates that they're going to do, Adrian Newey is definitely going to point it out to Aston Martin. It's like, hey, we should do this instead of that, for more downforce, less downforce, whatever the case might be. He's going to give his advice. But, when the new regs come in, I think that's when we're going to see the true power, fighting power of Aston Martin. Maybe not right away, but with time, with given races, I think that's where they're going to start performing and showing us what they really can do at that point.
I'll make mine short and sweet. They're not going to be competitive next year. 2026, we'll see if the signing of Adrian Newey is going to be doing anything. I already know for a fact that Lance Stroll will not do anything. He doesn't amount to anything in terms of his performance, the rest of the grid. Even Colapinto is probably going to kick his ass. Behrman's going to kick his ass too. So it's done. Like if in fact, or if it does happen on 2026 that Adrian Newey waves his magic wand and creates like a fantastic car, I'd like to see Fernando Alonso come back. The Fernando Alonso of Renault. Like, if he is able to just come back in that style, take his final championship and go into the sunset, like what Lewis would have done in 2021, well and good. But at this point, it's all speculation. I don't expect anything from Lance Stroll, but for Fernando, it's going to be like on the up and up, because now he has a good designer, he has a good engineer that's going to assist in building him a fantastic car to compete in.
I don't think much is going to happen with Aston Martin until Lance Stroll is gone. And I think as a team, until he is not driving in that car anymore, I don't foresee them being competitive. I think if Adrian Newey gets there next year and does his absolute magic, I still don't think that car is going to turn around as fast as it needs to in one season. I think he's going to make great strides, and they will be, a top 3-4 competitor again. But as far as fighting for wins, I just think that Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren and Red Bull have just jumped too far ahead too quickly for even Adrian Newey to catch them up. And then when you have only one driver fighting week in and week out, ultimately the Constructors' Championship is out the window. And to Ed's point, do I think newbies like Colapinto or Jack Doohan or some of these other drivers are going to outpace Stroll? Yeah, I think that's the reality. So we're excited. I'm pumped. I'm looking forward to seeing what a Newey car is going to look like at Aston Martin. I want to see that green machine boogie. And as we move on to the next team, let's jump into Alpine and check out their 2025 driver lineup. We have Mr. Pierre Gasly and Mr. Jack Doohan. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Jack Doohan's doing. You know what I mean? I think that guy is going to be the biggest wild card on the grid. I've seen what Ollie Behrman can do. I've seen what Kimi Antonelli can do. I'm looking forward to seeing what Jack Doohan can do. Unfortunately, Jack Doohan is stuck in an Alpine. And from what I've read on the internet, I think as of 2026, they will be a purchaser of engines, namely Mercedes. So as they move away from Renault and towards Mercedes, I think next year might be a bit of a leap year for them. They're probably not going to be very competitive. That's just my 2 cents, but that will give two things a time to happen. One is the gelling between Jack Doohan and Pierre Gasly, and also Jack to get up to speed on what it's like to race in Formula One in arguably one of the least competitive cars. Although they have looked pretty decent as of late, but as far as 2024 is concerned, they've been a wildly uncompetitive car. What's your take on that, guys?
So I'm not a big fan of Alpine. I don't have high hopes, especially the way they performed this year. Pierre Gasly had his moments where he performed, okay, I guess, but nothing to wow. There was no wow factors for me in regards to him or that team. In regards to Mr. Jack Doohan, I don't know what to expect, to tell you the truth. New face is always nice to see in Formula One. How sometimes these rookies, what you just said, they either fail to start like Logan Sargent, or they excel and succeed. I hope this kid will actually perform and actually be competitive and push that car to the limits. But as of right now, 2025, I don't see them improving much at all. I still think they're going to be basically at the bottom of the list, or near the bottom of the list. 2026 might be a different game, especially with the new engines and stuff, but I don't think there's a point of even touching upon that, because there's still a lot of things that might change till that time, and it's hard to say. It's one of those teams that's hard to say. From what I'm seeing right now, I don't expect great things from them. That's it. There's not much else to say.
I mean, good opportunity for Jack Doohan to really get used to Formula One, and then for Pierre Gasly to give a lot more inputs to the Alpine team, the engineers. So yeah, it's gonna be a bye year for them. They may or may not compete, but the way I see it, if things don't get changed with their vehicle, it's just going to be another year of just a very disappointing performance coming from Alpine. I am looking forward, though, that they would get into a Mercedes power plant and be a Mercedes customer and see how that works out. All thanks to their their idea of, instead of spending a lot of money in building a new engine from scratch, just focus on building the car, building the brand, getting a fantastic engine, and then performing. So next year is definitely going to be a trial year for Jack Doohan, a year for Pierre Gasly to assist in the team and just giving a lot more inputs. But yeah, 2026 is the year to look at Alpine to see if they can bounce back or not. Who knows what Flavio Briatore has in mind for the team.
All right. Well, moving from one of the least exciting teams on the grid, let's move to Williams and check out their 2025 Formula One drivers lineup. We have returning Mr. Alex Albon, and new to the team, but not new to Formula One, is Mr. Carlos Sainz. How is that for an absolutely interesting lineup. I am going to chalk this 100% up to James Valls. I think that guy is an absolute legend, and he will be a fantastic team principal. Every time I hear him on the radio, every time I hear him, saying great things about Alex in his race and Colapinto in his few races, he's such a confident, calm, collected, and forward-thinking guy that he was able to sign somebody like Carlos Sainz into arguably one of the least competitive cars in recent Formula One. And I mean recent as in like the last decade. And I think this driver pairing is probably one of the most interesting on the grid. And whether Carlos sticks around for a while, Albon got his second shot at Formula One by giving Williams a chance. And I think there might be an opportunity for some great things to happen at Williams. But that's my 2 cents. What do you guys take on the Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon pairing over at Williams?
Yeah, so Williams, I wasn't too excited about the team prior, but with this coming in next year, I am actually pretty pumped. What you said with in regards to the team principal, he's like junior total wolf, right? Like I totally agree. I feel weird. Like I don't really like the guy as a team principal, but I don't hate him. Like he definitely has like this persona, this character about him that it's there, and it's cool to listen to him talk to him, explain how the team works and the strategies and everything. So I'm that it's a good sign. In regards to the drivers, Alex Albon, I did not like that guy when previous to Williams. I don't know what it was about him, but I did not like him. And when he came back to Formula One, I'm like, great, he's going to be essentially useless again. Lo and behold, I was proven wrong. He had his very fair share moments where he did amazing. I'm not even going to bring in Logan Sargent into this because, nothing to compare, but Albon actually proved himself with Williams. He's a very good driver. Still not my favorite driver, but I don't hate on the guy. He puts his mouth where his skills are, and he does have the skills. So that's one of the drivers a good team needs. In regards to Mr. Carlos Sainz, yeah, I think that was a bit of a shock to all of us that, from Ferrari, you're moving to Williams, and, whether it was part of a good deal that was offered for you or the flexibility or whatever, same as Yuju said, with the team principal essentially selling the team to the driver like Carlos Sainz, that's a huge deal. To see what happens in 2025, man, I really hope this pair seems like it's such a good, for some reason it seems like such a good dynamic, and I think they're gonna do well. I think they're gonna really perform. They're gonna work as a team, and they're gonna score way more points, and they're gonna score points together. So I'm super pumped in regards to this. I'm super excited. I'm looking forward to this probably more than anything, and hopefully they don't disappoint. But yeah, I think it's amazing, and we'll see what they bring to the table.
Well, I like this pairing. I mean, honestly, for me, they look like two of the most humble drivers on the grid right now, and maximizing as much as they can with what they have. I mean, as you said, Alex Albon did perform really well this year, and even the previous year, he performed one of the best overtakes, I would say, in the past decade this year in Canada. And then, I can't stop talking about it. And then you have Carlos Sainz when the dominant Red Bull in 2023, I think he was the only one that won a race against that team. So it's a good driver lineup. I think the crux in everything is the car. I don't know if it's going to perform or not. But yeah, the way things for 2025, the way things are looking at, they will be a competitive team in in the bottom to the mid pack. If they come up with a fantastic car, which I doubt that's going to happen for 2025, because that could be another write-off year for them too. It's looking grim for those two, but here's to hoping. Just humor me on this with what we talked about in Red Bull. Do you think, and this is a question back to the rest of you guys too, do you think that if Carlos Sainz performs as much as they can, as much as he can rather, in Williams, and then Checo gets the boot, you think there's a chance that he might get picked up by Red Bull in 2026, even if he has that that 1+1 contract with Williams right now?
I don't think so. I'm
Okay.
going to stop you right there. I don't think so, because I think if they wanted Carlos Sainz, they would have had him already. And I think
Yeah, that's
that
what I
would,
was thinking too. But here's to hoping that Carlos Sainz can make it back to Red Bull. But yeah, like
I think
I
with
disagree.
Red Bull, you disagree. Okay, well, let's have it then.
I disagree. Partly because to your point, Drew. Yeah, if they wanted Carlos Sainz, they could have had it. But at the same time, what Rebel said, what Helmut Marko essentially said, I believe it was Helmut Marko. We're always looking for new talent for someone to impress us. So if Carlos Sainz does his thing and does it fucking amazingly well, yeah, I think it's going to catch Red Bull's eye, and I think they're going to start reconsidering. And if Checo gets the boot, I think they're strongly going to consider Carlos Sainz for that seat.
I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why he won't. One, because back to my point, if they wanted him, they would have had him already. I think Red Bull can't afford him. I think Red Bull needs to put a second driver in that seat that is future promising, because they have enough money sunk into Max Verstappen that they need someone like a Liam Lawson, like a Yuki Tsunoda to go into RB, which we will cover next. They're going to go into RB. They're going to show what they can do there, use that as a draft team. Then as soon as they're ready, they come up, but they're still on a low contract. You can't have somebody like Carlos Sainz at a Liam Lawson price. So if Liam Lawson can show up in the same way that Carlos Sainz can, why would they take someone like Carlos Sainz? They can't afford it. And not only that, but Carlos is so far into his career. How long do they have with him? Would they want someone like Carlos Sainz stealing the thunder from Max Verstappen because they have the same, fan base, the whatever time in Formula One? I don't think that that's going to happen, because I think that they heavily thought about that. When Carlos was a free agent for a long time, there are a lot of teams that took a pass on him, either because he's asking too much. It's going to put their number one driver on ease because, he's a great driver, almost to a point where they're going to compete too much against them. I think there was a lot of factors that make Carlos Sainz a bad second driver. But when you have a subpar fighting from the back of the grid team, somebody like Alex Albon, who is just grateful to still be in Formula One, is going to sit beside someone like Carlos Sainz and said, hey, bud, we're both in a shitty spot. Caught me on a bad day, on a bad way. And we got to go through this together, coming back from the bottom together. And then you have guys like Nico Hulkenberg who have managed to come back into Formula One, like Kevin Magnussen sticking around Formula One on one of the bottom teams, doing their absolute best with the machinery they've given. I don't know. My 2 cents is if they wanted Carlos at Red Bull, they would have had him. That being said, let's move on to the other Red Bull team, the 2024 Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, worst name of the year, arguably. And they have 2 drivers, the most recent signing and the most recent filled gap. We have Mr. Yuki Tsunoda and we have Mr. Liam Lawson. I think that's going to be a very interesting team. I think you have 2 young guys, Yuki, who's still trying to figure himself out, and you have Liam Lawson, who had a brief stint earlier and is looking for his second shot at the Red Bulls junior team. I think both of those guys are going to be gunning for absolute mayhem. Those guys need to perform in a big way because they know that Checo's seat is up for grabs. And I think both of those guys are good enough to compete against each other. And I think that it's going to get so competitive that this is going to be a very, very fun team to watch at the end of 2024 and all the way through 2025. If Checo doesn't stick around, I think if Liam comes in and absolutely slaps Yuki around and slaps Checo around in this AlphaTauri seat, or in this Visa Cash App, whatever the fuck they're called this week, I think Liam Lawson has a chance at that second seat. What is your take on this, guys?
All right, so Visa Cash App Racing Bulls is a team I feel strange about. Yuki Tsunoda, I didn't really like him as a driver, but he definitely matured and grown as a driver the last couple of years, so he has my respect for that. Liam Lawson, I can't hate the guy. The way he performed, when he stepped in, phenomenal. So I have high hopes and high expectations from him. But yeah, same boat with you, Drew. I think they're gonna do phenomenal work. I think they're gonna battle it out. But where I am kind of torn per se is I feel bad for Yuki, and that is because I don't think he has found himself, and I don't know where his future leads if that comes to it. We talked about this multiple times, multiple episodes. He's not gonna get the Red Bull seat. I'm sorry, I don't see that happening. He's for whatever reason, they think he's either not mature yet or doesn't have enough experience or still needs to grow. There's no way I see him getting that. If Checo seats becomes available, I don't see him going to Red Bull at all. He just doesn't have the persona to him, that doesn't have the characteristics per se. The guy that I see going to Red Bull, if he does perform, Liam Lawson, yeah. I see him 100%. If he kills it, he performs it, he's getting that seat. Again, very early to say, but just from what I'm seeing and from what I saw before, I think that's the way it's looking right now.
No, my money's on Liam Lawson. If Yuki Tsunoda was going to be a competitive driver, he should have just really blown out Daniel Ricciardo for this season. But I mean, he did minimally, not to the extent of him being a really good ace driver for VCARB. But the other side of it too is that he's not really that good when it comes to rapport with his team. His attitude isn't there. I mean, he has calmed down in the past few years, but nothing that would really change the minds of the rest of the team. So my money is definitely for the hungry Liam Lawson. He's been telling Red Bull, he's been telling VCARB, he's been telling Horner and Marco, y'all better give me a seat by the end of September or I'm out. It's in my contract. So yeah, they made sure that he had a seat. So you're right, Drew. I'm now coming into grips that this is going to be, the next driver for the second Red Bull seat. He's going to be driving for RBR in 2026. That's the way I see it. And then in order to clear out the mess that is VCARB, maybe Yuki Tsunoda will be out after, and then they would get two young drivers again. Then the young driver program of the ex-Toro Rosso, AlphaTauri, and VCARB will, reinvigorate itself, and out with the old and in with the new.
What an absolute disaster that team's names have been over the last couple of years. It's been absolutely crazy. I can't even keep up with it. But moving on from a team who changes their name every year to a team that has not changed their name since they've started, we are going to talk about Haas. And I think they are the first team we've talked about today with a fully new driver lineup. And we have veteran Esteban Ocon coming over from Alpine, and we have a new F2 driver coming up who is not unfamiliar with Formula One, but will be a rookie on the grid as of 2025 full-time, Mr. Oliver Behrman. I am very excited to see what this duo looks like because Esteban Ocon doesn't play so well with strangers, and Ollie Behrman is new enough that he needs to figure out what is going on in Formula One. From what I've seen, he's done pretty well for himself. I kind of like the kid. F2, not doing so great. But like I said, we've seen some drivers who come up from F2 who didn't do so great there absolutely kill it. And we've seen some Formula 2 champions come in and absolutely blow it up. So that being said, what's your take on Haas for the Formula 1 2025 drivers lineup of Esteban Ocon and Mr. Oliver Behrman?
Man, I feel bad for Ollie Behrman, man. I feel bad for the dude. He's going to go through the ringer with Esteban Ocon. And we all know, for every team that Esteban Ocon has ever been, will always try to edge out his teammate so that he's the best. He's the faster driver. And if they're competing with each other, you already know that he's going to put the other teammate into the wall. So I feel bad for Ollie Behrman. He looks like he's a fantastic driver. He proven himself in his stints this year with Ferrari, and then a little bit with the Haas team when K-Mag got the suspension. But yeah, I hope he just doesn't get jaded. I hope he fights back to our boy Esteban Ocon. And yeah, I mean, they're starting to compete again. I mean, Hulkenberg alone is broke into the 10th spot in the drivers championship. That's fantastic. But is it the driver, or is it the car, or is it both? We'll never know. 2025 is going to be looking real good for Haas or looking real grim for Haas.
Yeah, so this is one of the teams I feel like it's going to be a little bit of a dumpster fire. It's just the way, first of all, the way Ed said, yeah, this year, whether that was a team principle change or whatever it was, it seemed to work for Haas, and they were performing phenomenal. And I think they surprised everyone. Coming to next year, in regards to Esteban Ocon, man, like, part of me is glad he went to Haas, because sorry, not sorry, he's such a shit driver, and his attitude and everything, don't like him as a person. So I don't have good expectations or high expectations for him, for the team that he's driving with. I'm kind of with that. I think there's going to be a lot of headbutting, essentially, I'm a better driver. No, I'm a better driver. So I feel sorry for Haas. I feel sorry for Oliver Behrman that, most likely he's going to have to deal with Esteban. In regards to Oliver Behrman, from what we saw this year so far, seems like a good guy, phenomenal driver so far. I think if Haas is going to, be fair to the team and to both drivers, hopefully there's going to be no bullying of any sort, no stepping on each other's toes or anything, and they're going to both play nice and behave. But realistically, don't have too much high hopes. Regardless, it's going to be interesting to watch them, what's gonna come out in 2025, and how they're gonna play in the sandbox with the other boys.
What 2024 has been very interesting for Haas. I like Nico Hulkenberg and Kevin Magnussen together. They've been a very scrappy duo. They've been doing their absolute best. They've been putting that car as deep into qualies as they can. And, K-Mag's obviously had a couple of penalty points that's kind of put him out a little bit, but he's back with a vengeance. And I think that, Haas switching it up entirely and getting a couple of new drivers in is, it's well needed, because I think K-Mag and Nico are both moving on and doing the right things. And before we move on to the final team, which is the Stake F1 team kick Sauber, or whatever mouthful they've chosen to go with for the 2024 season, let's just do one thing real quick. For everybody who's still listening, thank you so much. We are Formula One True North, the Canadian Formula One podcast. We have a Discord channel, a YouTube. We got a Spotify. I don't know where you're listening to this, but we're there too. We got Instagram. We got TikTok. We got Facebook. If you're on social media, please like, follow, share, subscribe. Do all those good things, because it really helps us with the algorithm. It helps us reach new people, and we appreciate your support more than anything, which brings me to my point of Discord. Discord is a great app. We can talk all things Formula One. We got a great group of people in there, and we have lots of fun. We shoot memes over to each other. We got Formula One stats, trades, all the good stuff. So the link will be in the show notes. If you haven't already, join the Discord, jump in there, have lots of fun. And on that note, let's move on to the Stake F1 team kick Sauber 2025 drivers lineup, and the only empty seat that's official. We have Nico Hulkenberg, who was signed, and we are unsure of who the second seat's going to be. We've heard talks about Valtteri Bottas. We're not sure. So let's stick to what we know. Nico Hulkenberg at the Stake F1 team kick Sauber, which is now going to be Sauber, which will then be Audi in 2026. So they're definitely looking in the forward direction. They are definitely all eyes ahead, and they are planning for the future to be a works team. What's your thoughts on this, guys?
I think this team is another dumpster fire, except it's worse than Haas. Considering how their last couple of years went, or they didn't go anywhere per se, because fucking pointless and shit, literally pointless. Yeah, I don't have huge expectations for Nico Hulkenberg. I mean, I'm glad, he found a seed that he's still going to be in F1. I hope he's still going to be at Audi during that time. But for the team that, they're taking their sweet ass time to trying to find that number two, whether it be Mr. Valtteri Bottas or whether it be someone else, they're taking their sweet ass time, and that's not a good look. I think that's not a good look for the team that they're taking their time. Means they're I have no hopes for them. I think 2025 is going to be exactly as 2024. They might score 1 or 2 points because of Nico, judging based on what we know so far. But their performance and everything that we have seen, little to no hope of the team. And I think they're going to be at the bottom as well. Coming 2026, that might be a different story. But too early to tell.
Totally agree with you on that one, Tomas. I mean, I think the only saving grace of this team is, in fact, Nico Hülkenberg. And if Bottas comes and signs with them, great. You have another fast driver. Then again, he already knows the car. He knows the team. He knows everyone else in the factory. I mean, that's great. I mean, there's other drivers like, Colapinto that is rumored that they might be looking at him too because of his performance, recent performance rather, in Williams. So 2025 rather is going to be a write-off for them. Totally agree. 2026, I don't know. It's Mattia Binotto is running the show. He's a good engineer. I don't think he's a good team principal. But here's to hoping that Audi becoming, the new works team for Formula One, that they would have the same success as they've been having in Le Mans and all of the other motorsports that they've joined in. So here's to hoping for them.
Well, I think the Audi takeover is well needed. I think that the team has been struggling as of late, and I think it's going to be nice to get another works team coming in, with the pedigree that Audi has. I think that, getting things rolling in a big way and starting themselves off with a sure thing by signing someone like Nico Hülkenberg is a great idea. I think even getting somebody else like Valtteri Bottas, who obviously has been struggling at Stake F1 team Kick Sauber, or whatever they're called. He's been struggling not because he's a bad driver, because he proved that he's a very good driver and a very good number two and consistent out the yin yang. So as far as I'm concerned, I think he would be a great signing, but who knows what that second seat's going to be. Is it a smarter play to potentially take like a younger long shot? Maybe for the future of the team. You have your guarantee, somebody like Nico Hülkenberg, who's going to be your tried and true steady, and then you take your shot on a long bet. Why not? This is your opportunity to do that before you have anything invested too deep with anybody. But I think that to summarize, in my opinion, on the Stake F1 team, is I'm not even almost looking forward to next year. They are a 2026 bet, and once that team drops the Stake F1 and becomes Sauber next year, it's still going to be whatever. And by the time they get to 2026, I hope Audi has their engines and all those rags figured out. I hope they're working very hard somewhere in the world right now, creating an F1 car for 2026, because that's the only way that they're going to do anything, is coming out of the gates hot. That's it. We've wrapped up all the teams. We've done all 10, all 19 driver seats that are confirmed for 2025. Thank you everybody for listening. This is Formula One True North, Canadian Formula One podcast. Like we said, don't forget to like, subscribe, rate wherever you are listening. Press that button. We appreciate it. Looking forward to talking with you guys next week. We got all new ideas, all new stuff coming at you. Ciao for now.
It's lights out and away we go.